I want to be clear about something right from the start. I want the Finch West LRT to succeed. I'm not one of those people who wakes up in the morning hoping transit projects fail just so I can complain. I believe in transit. I believe in public investment. I believe that Northwest Toronto deserves real high-quality rapid transit after decades of being treated like an afterthought. This is precisely why the Finch West LRT is so frustrating, because what we were promised and what we received are two entirely different things, and the gap between them is not small. It's embarrassing, systematic, and self-inflicted. From the moment that Line 6 opened, it became painfully obvious that it was not rapid transit in any meaningful sense of the phrase. This is not a subway. It does not function like one. It does not move like one. It does not even outperform the bus service it replaced in a consistent way. In fact, in some cases, it performs worse. And when your brand new multi-billion-dollar transit line is slower than a bus and slower than a man running beside it, you don't get to hide behind technical jargon of soft launch excuses. You get laughed at. And you deserve it. The now infamous story of a Toronto runner beating the Finch West LRT end-to-end should not have surprised anyone who understands how this line was designed, and more importantly, how it is being operated. This was not some Olympic athlete sprinting at world record pace. This was a reasonably fit person jogging along Finch Avenue in winter conditions and still arriving significantly earlier than a piece of infrastructure that took nearly 2 decades to plan and build. That moment did more to expose the failure of the Finch West LRT than any consultant report ever could, because it distilled the problem into something that everyone immediately understands, that this thing is slow, and not just a little slow. What makes it worse is that this slowness is not some unavoidable law of physics. It is not because light rail is inherently incapable of moving quickly. It is because Toronto, once again, managed to build a transit line that is terrified of asserting itself in the city it is supposed to serve. The Finch West LRT runs in a dedicated right-of-way, but it behaves like a guest who keeps apologizing for existing. It stops at red lights, it waits for turning cars, it calls through intersections. It sacrifices its own momentum so drivers are not mildly inconvenienced, and in doing so it sacrifices the entire point of being there. This is where the line crosses from merely disappointing into actively useless. Rapid transit is not defined by the vehicle type. It is defined by speed, reliability, and competitiveness with driving. If you cannot beat traffic, you're not rapid transit. If your travel times fluctuate wildly depending on signal timing, you're not rapid transit. If riders are standing on platforms wondering why they are paying for something that feels functionally identical to a bus, or worse, then you have failed the basic test. Supporters of the Finch West LRT like to say that this is just the beginning and that things will improve. They point to the future signal priority adjustments, operator familiarity, and optimization phases that will allegedly unlock the line's true potential. But this argument misses the larger issue entirely. Why was the line allowed to open in this state in the first place? Why was the project sold to the public as a transformational upgrade rolled out with conditions that actively undermine its performance? Why do riders have to wait months or years for fixes that should have been non-negotiable on day one? This is not a teething problem. This is a design philosophy problem. Toronto has become addicted to half measures in transit planning, particularly when it comes to surface rail. We build lines that look impressive in renderings but are kneecapped in real life because we refuse to give them the absolute priority over cars. We pretend that painting lanes, installing curbs, and adding signals is enough to create subway-like performance, and then we act shocked when it does not work. The Toronto Sun column arguing that the Finch West LRT should have been a subway may come from a very different ideological place than most transit advocates do, but it touches on an uncomfortable truth. Subways are expensive, yes, but they also do what they're supposed to do. They move fast. They do not stop at intersections. They are not delayed by left-turning vehicles or poorly coordinated traffic lights. They are brutally simple in the best possible way. You get on, you move, you get off. The Finch West LRT, by contrast, is a masterclass in compromise, and every compromise costs riders time. What makes this especially galling is the context in which this line exists. Finch Avenue West is not some sleepy corridor with light demand and occasional ridership. It is one of the busiest east-west transit corridors in the city, serving dense apartment clusters, major institutions, and communities with some of the highest transit dependency in Toronto. These riders were not asking for luxury. They were asking for dignity, reliability, and speed. Instead, they were handed a system that feels like an experiment being run on them in real time. And let's talk about expectations, because expectations matter. This line was not sold as a slightly nicer than a bus line. It was sold as a generational investment, a game changer, a symbol of progress for the outer parts of the city that have been historically neglected. Politicians posed for photos. Agencies issued press releases. Years of disruption were justified with the promise that it would be all worth it in the end. When the end product cannot even deliver consistent end-to-end travel times close to what was advertised, public trust erodes fast. The most frustrating part of all of this is that the solutions are not mysterious. Transit signal priority should not be optional. It should not be something that has to be fought for after opening. If the Finch West LRT cannot get a green light when it approaches an intersection, then the intersection has been designed incorrectly. If maintaining car throughput requires slowing transit to a crawl, then the city has made the wrong choice. Transit that yields to traffic is not transit leadership. It is surrender. There is also something deeply insulting about the way criticism of the Finch West LRT is sometimes dismissed as negativity or impatience. Riders are not impatient for wanting a transit line to be faster than walking or jogging. That is the bare minimum. Riders are not unreasonable for expecting a brand new line to outperform a bus route that ran in mixed traffic. That is the entire justification for spending billions of dollars on fixed rail infrastructure. When those expectations are not met, anger is not only understandable, it is rational. What the Finch West LRT represents, more than anything, is a warning. If Toronto continues to build surface rapid transit without committing to operational priority, without the political courage to inconvenience drivers, and without the discipline to define success in terms of rider experience rather than ribbon cuttings, then we will keep repeating this cycle. We will keep spending enormous sums of money to build infrastructure that looks good on maps and performs poorly in reality. I want to believe that this line could be fixed, that signal priority can be implemented properly, that schedules can be tightened, and that operators can be empowered to move decisively. But belief is not enough. Until those changes are visible and measurable, the Finch West LRT stands as a case study in how not to do transit. It is a reminder that technology does not save you from bad decisions, and that calling something rapid does not make it so. At the end of the day, transit is not about vehicles or modes. It is about time. It is about respecting the time of people who rely on the system to get to work, school, appointments, and home. Right now, the Finch West LRT does not respect that time. And until it does, it deserves every ounce of criticism it receives. Not because people hate transit, but because they care about it too much to accept mediocrity wrapped in a new paint and shiny stations. I have linked both of the articles in the description of the video so that you could read them if you're interested in doing so. I hope that you liked the video. If so, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed and want to be notified of new videos that are released, please click on the Outrun button here. This is the video that I would recommend for you to watch next, and I'm sure that you're going to love it. Here's the playlist for all of the latest in transit news and views that you're going to find very informative and interesting. And finally, here is the latest video. Thanks for watching and happy transiting.